continue where we left off. And another question, which of course follows the restriction on movements. Do you have any idea of when these restrictions can start to be lifted?
Okay. So for what concerns Italy, today the restriction is until May 3.
Okay.
But May 3 is the current deadline. But it's also true that we have already some different interpretation from region to other region. For example, in Liguria, Genova, for example, today, during this week, they reopen the industry of new boat. That is under restriction in all Italian territory. So there are in some region different law that is very important to be checked based on where is located the yacht or the new construction. It's also important to point out that inside the restriction there is not included the repair and maintenance works, and so any yachts is free to reach Italy to start a refit job, or in any case, if a yacht is already in a shipyard, the refit works can continue.
Okay, so you're already answering another question I will put to the panel, but of course.
Okay.
In Monaco, if I may, in Monaco and in France, the last information we have is that the restrictions shall be lifted, at least is the date we have now in Monaco, the 4th of May, the 11th of May in France, but usually Monaco follows France. So I think that the date which we have now, it's 11th of May. And we don't know yet exactly how it will be organized. What we know is that the lifting shall be progressive. They are speaking now about opening schools, kindergartens, so that people can start going again to work. But everything which shall be precise within the next weeks.
Okay.
Actually, Alison, you may have seen in the questions and answers session, there's quite a few people asking questions that you might want to have a look at there, and there's quite a few in the chat as well. I know we have asked people to send the questions to the Q&A session. There is actually one here for Janet about can we haul a yacht out of a marina in France and move it to a yard on the hard standing close by?
Maybe you'd like to...
Movements of yachts in Monaco and France, the thing is that you're allowed to move from, just to go back a bit, because I didn't mention if you can leave actually the port of Monaco and France. In principle, you're not authorized to leave the ports. Some specific requests can be made, but if you obtain these derogations, you need to prove that you have another berth reservation in another port to be sure that your yacht will be accepted. If you decide to leave, the yacht will not be able to enter again in the port from which it left, only if there are some seasonal or annual berth reservations. Now, you can move from one port to the other, but you need again to have this berth reservation in the other port. You can move to go to a marina, but to a shipyard. The initial information we had is that you can do so if you're able to provide a contract with the shipyard for refit or maintenance, which should have been signed before the 20th of March. Now I understand that I'm not going to touch the yards because this will be touched a bit later on, but these dates can be negotiated on a case-by-case basis now with the yard. So yes, it's possible, but you need to have a contract in place with the yard.
I think that's crystal clear as usual. Thank you, Janet. Miguel, any idea?
Yes, well, currently in Spain, the current situation is to keep the lockdown until April 26, but will be most likely extended until May 10. So we are in a very similar situation to that in France. Anyway, what is being worked a lot in Madrid is lobbying in order to, once the outbreak measures are being de-escalated, to try to resume as soon as possible the yachting industry, because it's having enormous cost, and try to leave the confinement as soon as possible, because the crew are completely closed in a yacht, and it's in a different manner than the rest of the population, but it's just working on that.
Okay, so Lorna, you've just launched another poll to see what our delegates. Do you say delegates on a webinar as well, Lorna? You're the expert. Your microphone is off.
Yeah, so I'm asking people here, people are already voting about the port and yacht restrictions when they feel they're most likely to be lifted. So let's give people a chance to vote on that. We've got quite a few other questions here that might be interesting for people to look at here. Okay. Yeah, so we've had a question there for Janet, and I'm just scrolling down here. Yeah, so would non-EU citizens be allowed in France, Spain or Italy this summer? That's from Sofia Tutino.
Well, this summer, I hope so, but for the time being, the borders are closed. President Macron spoke on Monday, and he said that normally starting from the 11th of May, we should have the restrictions lifted, but he said that the EU borders, I mean, between Europe, it will be open, but to see how all this will be organized, but the international borders are still closed. So until when, this we don't know. But now, non-EU residents are not allowed to enter into the country unless they have a specific derogation or valid reason to come and to travel. It's only to go back to your home, or you have a medical reasons or emergency situations. So for the time being, the answer is generally no, unless you have a good reason. But of course, I hope that if we start lifting the restrictions, I think that it should reopen and start slowly.
Yes. Well, that is also the sense we're getting from the Maltese authorities, Janet, in the sense that I think it's hard to discuss the subject because there's a lot of unknowns. So, of course, we're trying to work with what we have. I get the sense that the Maltese authorities, of course, understand the importance of the opening of ports for the commercial operations. And I think all governments are grappling with balancing the protection of health, which is, of course, paramount to everything, while at the same time not bringing commerce to its knees more than necessary. And from discussions we've had, both with customs and with the harbour master, it's clear that once there is a sense from the superintendent of health that it would be able to allow resuming of operations, therefore including, commercial importations of yachts, deliveries, etc., within a risk assessment scenario. So, of course, with crew quarantine, restriction on movements, perhaps only for essential visits, then that will start to be allowed, even if there are other measures in parallel. So in Malta, we have social distancing, a prohibition of more than a number of people being together at the same time unless they are family. So all the rules which apply on land would, to an extent, need to apply to people who are on boats and come off ashore. So I think that is the message that we are getting. Jennifer, do you have any feedback from the authorities on?
I mean, it's still nothing formal, but I mean, they're beginning to discuss relaxing measures in respect of school and office and just general everyday life in early May, so 10th of May. I expect, I mean, just from the grapevine, we think that probably the restrictions will be lifted mid-May for the yachts, because like Miguel was saying, it's massive, the economical impact on tourism in Greece. And it's not only the yachts, it's also the ferries taking people to the islands. For now, only residents of the islands can go to the islands. So we need to get that up and running again. And I expect that's the next, and if they're talking about relaxing measures, that definitely will be one of the important ones in line.
Well, what you say is very much in line with the results of the poll, right, Lorna? So it seems that...
That's right. Yes, I mean, I would say we've had some very positive results back from the poll. Actually, we've asked people here when they think the port and yacht restrictions are likely to be lifted, and after how long, in their opinion. And the majority of people, 77%, have said between 2 to 3 months. Another 22%, as you see, have said between 4 and 5 months. Just 2% has said between 6 and 12 months, and no one said more than 12 months. So I interpret that as a very positive feedback from everybody out there. Yeah.
Well, we're generally a positive crowd, so
that's good. We need to be.
We need to be, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So we know that it's clear that different member states are taking different measures, and now I want to touch a bit on the shipyards and the refit yards in the various jurisdictions. I've been reading and following other webinars, and it's clear that while works have been stopped in some, others, such as in Holland, the new build shipyards are still operating as per normal. And of course, the intention is for deliveries to take place eventually. We also see this positivity that we're just mentioning being reflected in the fact that the industry is doing its utmost even to encourage people to consider chartering over the next months. There have been discussions from various brokers and leaders saying that the hope is for a part of the season to be salvaged, the latter part to be salvaged. So MIBA contracts are being concluded. An addendum was drafted up to MIBA to allow the parties to be able to step back without any penalties and any damages, purely to encourage the wheel to continue turning. So let's look at this for a while. Can we have an idea of what the situation is with the shipyards? Are works still being carried out? Is refit work being carried out in preparation for a possible salvaging of the season? Janet, would you like to comment on that?
Well, if we consider the current situation, the fact that suppliers cannot really work, subcontractors, ports are closed, yachts, it's difficult for them to enter and to leave. The majority of the yards, I mean, around the Mediterranean, have decided to close actually since beginning of March. So very little is organized. And of course, with the aim actually to protect the health of the people working in the yards. Now, a good thing, I'm not allowed to tell exactly which yard, but what I've heard is that some yards might decide to open again towards around the 24th of April, I mean last week of April, in order to start again. But even if they do so, they first of all, they close because they invoke force majeure. They will still continue to invoke force majeure. And even they start again working, they will be working only at around 20% of their capacity because we have to consider the tremendous measures they will have to put in place in order to allow their staff to work again and in order to protect their health. So it's going to be really, I mean, very difficult. Within the mask, the gloves, they're taking the temperature, only one team which is allowed to be in the yacht in the same time, that they have to sanitize all the yacht, all the equipment and everything before leaving. So it will start again towards the end of April, so which I think is a good sign, but I think that a lot of delays still have to be expected.
Absolutely. Miguel, Spain, you have so many refit yards there. What's happening?
Yes, well, in Spain, well, as you all know, the refit and repair activity is very important. They have had a forced stop since March 30 until last Sunday, so they have been able to retake the activity on Monday 13th of this last Monday. And they are working right now, but as as Janet was commenting, the capacity is much lower to put in place all necessary means with the health and safety measures that are needed to retake fully the activity. They also depend on subcontractors, some teams of engine trademarks who were working at the shipyards have been repatriated, then they have to come back. So it's not easy. They are now maybe at 30% of his capacity and trying to increase, but they have reopened all of them in Barcelona, in Palma, etc.
Okay. Ezio, you did answer.
Yes, I already give some answer to this question. However, today is important to say that the lockdown regarding new shipyard is not the same in all the Italian territory. So it's important to check region by region. For sure, in Liguria, where is based, for example, San Lorenzo shipyard and many other shipyards based in Genoa or in La Spezia are reopened from this week. Regarding the refit shipyard, I have already informed that are open and is not under restriction. It's also important to point out that regarding, we receive many questions. One is also in the chat today now regarding a deal in process with Italian shippers. So if there is a client close with the delivery of the new yacht, there is any implication in this moment based on the restriction? The answer is no. Because today all the VAT and custom rule that is in place ordinary for an intra-community transaction or for an export transaction, it can be performed without any delay. So what is important is only to agree, which is the procedure between a client and shipyard regarding the delivery, but not there is not any restriction that, for example, is based on the custom formalities or on any other formalities, because all the formalities can be performed, maybe with the delay of 1 day, but nothing that cannot allow to complete the closing.
Excellent. Well, so I mean, you get the sense that authorities are trying to cooperate as much as they can in the situation. I think it's clear.
Yes, it's correct. We can say that the tax office, the VAT office, and the custom office is open in Italy, and therefore cannot make any restriction in the procedure of closing and delivery of new yachts.
Excellent. Jennifer,
we have, sorry, after you. Yeah, I was just going to say we have some poll results, but maybe we want to hear from Jennifer first, and I'll just go through the poll results.
Okay, so the shipyards, they're operating normally in Greece for now. There's obviously stringent control entering the yard. Only managers and crew can enter the yard. You can even attend marinas for safety-related works. There are some delays because some of the subcontractors aren't working or problems with parts. But for the time being, I mean, the shipyards are operating, which is great because assuming we do lift the restriction mid-May, many of the yachts will be set to go.
Good. That's good news. Lorna, you wanted to share the poll results.
Yes, I think you can probably see these. The final question that we've asked in our poll is if we feel that the port and yacht restrictions that have been imposed as a result of the pandemic, are at the right level given the threat posed. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of people, as you can see here, agreed with this, and some strongly agreed with this as well. So 61% agreed, 22% strongly agreed. We had 18% of people who disagreed, and no one strongly agreed. So it seems that people feel that the authorities are on the right track overall. So that's interesting.
Which is great. So we only have a few minutes left. We did say it's a short webinar, but I hope that we sort of gave an overview of the situation. Just one last thing I wanted to touch upon, because clearly this pandemic is going to change the way we work. I mean, we're already here on a screen, whereas otherwise would be in one of the hundreds of conferences that we all attend. And I very much suspect that if this cooperation between the authorities and the practitioners continues, we will need to find ways of streamlining procedures to avoid perhaps minimum contact as possible between crew, customs officials, etc. One thing I'm seeing from the Maltese side is definitely that importations which are already can be carried out already remotely will be strengthened as regards making them as smooth as possible for the yacht to come in and leave with minimum physical interaction and make use of all the technology that we all have available. I was curious to see if you feel that that will happen also in your jurisdictions, whether you'll be seeing more customs procedures going online, whether the authorities will be amenable to be more flexible, because this is very important to start guiding our clients as of now. Miguel, you're nodding away, so would you like to?
Yes,
No?
yes, for sure. Well, in Spain, all customs, foreign IDs, harbor master procedures, etc., can be done, most of them online. But the problem with those online procedures is always that generally you need the final resolution on the procedures, and this resolution can be issued online, but the service must be working. And the problem is that we have at the moment few people working on those matters. So it is working, the procedure online, sorry, but it's taking some more time than regularly.
You mean because the human resources are strained at the moment, or less people are on the ground? I understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a matter of the means that are put in place to solve this kind of procedures, but the online procedures exist and used to work properly, specifically with the tax authorities.
Yeah.
We are lucky in some procedures also in Spain, because, for example, for temporary admission, nothing is needed. With the sole crossing of the borders is enough. You do not need to file a formal requirement. But at the end of the day, is not extremely useful at the moment, because as we all have said and agreed before, the EU borders are at least until the 15th of May closed, and probably the period will be extended. So it's not extremely relevant now.
Okay. Janet, what about French commercial exemption procedures, importations? Will you be able to do it all remotely?
No, we are, and the thing is that it's already the case. You will still already be able to do all that remotely. So custom offices are still working. It's still possible to import yachts in the French commercial exemption. And by the way, yachts arrive. If you take the duck transport, for instance, duck can still arrive from the Caribbean. So then this yacht will need to be imported. So yes, you can. Of course, there are less boat entering. So we will see how it goes when the restrictions are lifted. For the yachts which are in temporary admission as well, one thing which is very important, especially if the 18-month period is ready to elapse, you need to make a formal request actually to the customs to be sure that this 18-month period is extended and could be re-extended if the restrictions are not lifted on the 11th of May. So generally speaking, they understand the situation, they are flexible and really there to help. So then things happen, and customs office are working, and the majority of the things can be done remotely. So this is the situation here for now.
Great. Jennifer.
Yeah, it's been quite refreshing that we do now, as a result of the situation, have access to more online services throughout the authorities.
Yeah.
We're understaffed because of the measures in place. So as a result, even though you can upload things, send them electronically, if you need to visit the authorities, you have to do it by appointment. But there's a terrible lag due to the lack of staff. But it's happening, and going forward, it will be a good development which came out of COVID. The fact that
Exactly.
they are open to online transactions.
Ezio, from your end?
Yes, as in France, the office are open. Are already in the past. The main procedure was already in electronic form, so I don't see any delay in making place import-export of yacht or any other maritime formality regarding departure or arrival declaration. Maybe that we can have some delay regarding this special health declaration for yacht that will arrive in Italian port, but this can be dealt in advance from the estimated date of arrival.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm coming away with a positive sense, you know, regardless of the situation. I think that our industry is quite a hard nut, so a hard nut to crack in the sense that we're tough. I think that we'll manage to adapt, we'll manage to ride it out. Of course, the hit is going to be quite substantial. We don't know how much yet, but clearly it's an industry that can come up with solutions, sometimes at very short notice. So I'm very hopeful myself that we will try and work with the authorities to continue servicing our clients in the coming weeks. I want to thank you all for joining me, and it was really nice to see you. Apart from all that, it's always nice to see you in the limited way we have. We might hold further seminars. We've already spoken to Lorna over the next weeks, definitely to update you on this subject, which might change in the weeks to come. So please keep an eye out for our updates. And with that, I'll leave it to Lorna to close off. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Well, look, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Alison and thank all our panelists for your fantastic input today. Thank you to everyone who signed up for the webinar as well. I'm sorry that not all of you were able to sign on. We had restrictions on the numbers that we're dealing with for the next time. And as Alison said, we will be running something similar next time. Thank you very much for all your questions as well. And unfortunately, we didn't really have time to get through a lot of the excellent points that people were wanting addressed. But obviously you have your panel of experts here, and I'm sure some of them will be interested in hearing from you if you've got inquiries for them in the future. But
well, we're getting a lot of encouraging comments, Lorna, which is really nice.
Absolutely. There's a lot of interesting comments coming back on the chat, and as we've said, there's been some some really positive feedback about restrictions being lifted and everything moving in the right direction, and people out there, the mood seems to be a lot more positive now, so that's all for the good. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
And we'll see you the next time. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.